Good afternoon. This is Dr. B. It's 26th September. It's sometime in the mid-afternoon. And here I am. This video, first of all, I'm going to ramble. This is not going to be a Hollywood production, this particular video, but there are two pretty important things to bring up. First of all, thank everyone for the good wishes for hoping I would recover quickly from what I had, which I won't go into here, but it was very nasty and it continues to be very nasty. As we speak, I have a port in my arm where my wife is administering IV from the house because otherwise it was another 2 weeks in the hospital, and I would have gone bonkers at that point. So we're not doing that, and so I'm moving very slowly in more ways than one. So I'm going to probably miss a few boats, a few swings here and there, and just be patient with me about that. But I do appreciate the patience with me. I will tell you too that I kind of known that I was going to be out for a couple of days, but not like I thought I was going to be out when I bring in the hospital. So I had prepared in advance. That's why I set you up all the way, really kind of up through last week. So we're not really behind in terms of the content approaches as such, I don't think. So what I'm going to do is just kind of plow forward and on 2 counts. And you can tell by the voice I'm not going to last for really very long. So here we go. Again, thank you very much. It does mean a lot to me. I wish I had known you. I wish I could get to know all of you in a classroom so we could have some real fun. Okay, let's take the low-hanging fruit first. And what is the low-hanging fruit? What is the low-hanging fruit? I just gave up the one. I got to go start that again. So it's welcome to my world. Just want to dig that out again. So I mean, that to bring up Google. Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit inadequate with this first piece, but I think it's necessary. I know that all of you are interested in accruing as many intern hours as you can get within this course. And I know that I mentioned this early on when I talked about trauma education very slightly, but I tried to sprinkle it into some of the things we were addressing. And so, as you know, our particular emphasis of this course this semester is that trauma education piece, and something that clearly has tremendous import. I don't need to tell you about the things that happen daily here, there, and everywhere else that you have to be clued into and know how to contend with, especially insofar as the kind of issues that your children may be confronted with the world out there. So at any rate, you know that we offered, I'm going to share the screen. This is going to be really brief. If you have any questions, shoot them to me, and I'll get back to you as rapidly as I can. I'm on the understanding that you had this flyer, that there is in fact a virtual mentoring forum, which is going to be October 25th. I'm sorry, September 27th. That's tomorrow. And you were all anxious about where this was because I hadn't posted this piece up, and fully intending to do that actually last week, but certainly this week as well. So I guess the first thing we need to do is that clearly there's an opportunity for you to participate in this 4-part series. I'm going to read to you, not because you like to be read to any more than I like to be read to. I'm going to read to you insofar as helping me get my own motor running with this. And so we have this mentoring forum. It sounds pretty interesting to me. trauma-informed pedagogies for culturally and linguistic diverse schools. And that tells me that there are pedagogies that seem to be more specifically geared to the trauma things that are going on out there and how you can respond to them from an instructional point of view, if not probably more importantly, from a support emotional point of view for these children's needs. It's got 4 parts: how trauma impacts a student's capacity to engage in learning. That's clear enough. I'm going to step off for a minute, and I know many of you are mostly familiar with the fact that there was a terrible accident late last week in Farmingdale, at the Farmingdale school system, and people died in a bus crash upstate New York someplace. And you can imagine with the superintendent and how that principal is going to have to deal with the trauma that's affected, I think it's about a 5,000 or 6,000 student school, which is, by the way, quite highly culturally diverse, and how they mean to take care of that. This is a tremendous challenge to the system, enormous challenge to the system. So think of it from that point of view, as I continue to stress the idea of system. Quite frankly, having come from I'm not going to call it inept. Some places it was exemplary, but in some other ways it was completely inept emergency room situations for the past several days. You can see that our systems are not prepared to deal with things that are going out there, notwithstanding the fact that you would think that an emergency room would be ready for just about anything. The truth is that they're not, and that they don't really talk to each other as much as I thought that they did. And so, yes, that's certainly something that we can speak to over many numbers of situations. So we're talking about how the trauma impacts a child's capacity to learn, okay? And we're looking at more specifically the complexities for our ELL learners. So there are 4 sessions. One is tomorrow's strategies for trauma-informed relationships. Second one will be October 18th, several weeks later. A toolbox. That'd be interesting to see. I'm going to sit on that one myself for responding to highly dysregulated students. Oh, that's an interesting word. Pay attention to that word. Dysregulated. I could define it a couple of different ways, but I think you can too. Let's pay attention to how they try to define it in the workshops. And lastly, either the session 3 was strategies for co-regulating. I guess getting them from dysregulating to co-regulating. Again, crazy verbs there, I think. And session 4 is how to respond to disclosures from students about trauma that they're enduring in their personal home lives and so forth, and other places for that matter. And so it seems to me have a great deal of value, as far as I can see, as far as making this come together. And Dr. Gonzalez is totally, absolutely, I know the person very slightly. I think very highly that this person is quite qualified to bring you some good premises to work with. So yes, you should sign up. If you haven't signed up already, you should sign up. And what I'm expecting you to do, if I'm not expecting it, I'm just offering it to you. And I'm going to be dealing with some of these things along the way within the classroom, my own course. But what I do expect you to do is to, well, I would recommend strongly that you go. Sit in on the session, pay attention to the session, and I'll give you credit for anything that you do that has anything to do with the issues that are, but I'll give you intern credit for anything that you do along each of those sessions. So let's take them one at a time. So there's a session tomorrow. As you listen to it, if you do a PMI of it for me. I'm not giving you a due date for it, but I think I'm going to give you a due date. In fact, I'll make it a discussion question. That'll solve everybody's problems. A discussion question number 1 for next week. This week coming will be trauma-induced. And you're going to do a PMI of it. we'll get a conversation going on that. And we'll see if that works. I think I'm pretty sure it will, but and if that will add to it for the October session and for the following sessions from there. So I encourage you. I encourage you to. If you don't attend, it's fine. It's all optional as far as I'm concerned. But it's kind of hard to rack. I don't like to use that verb, but rack up intern hours. I know. In the old days, a student would have X amount of time carved out of her teaching schedule and be able to go sit with the principal, the chair, or at least a portion of the day, and after school for that matter, or before, to help that person learn from the administrators trying to help you learn in terms of the skill sets and PSEL standards that you need to meet. And presuming that you're going to be doing some of that, you really should. That's cool, being down on the ground, doing what you have to do. But that doesn't altogether add up to all the things you're going to do to that. So I'm going to say that clearly sitting through the session, I'm going to guess it's an hour long. So there's an hour of a clock. And then what you write up also can count as another hour. Now you need to keep the record. That way I'm going to keep the records when I see the DQ from my side. But you need to keep the record of the hours and for when you clock it for the end of the semester. Okay, I don't think there's any more questions related to that. I'm again encouraging you people to take part of it. Now, I'm also presuming, I don't know this, so from 6 to 7 on any night, Wednesday nights for that matter, might be problematic for some of you, the family lives and other obligations, go to courses and whatnot. So I would presume that this will be taped, recorded, so you can download it and stream it on your time. If it's not, let me know. Let me know about it. I need to know that. Okay. I won't be sitting through this one tomorrow, maybe. By the time of the night, it's not going to happen. Okay, so that's the first piece. I'm losing my voice, but we'll stay with it. And I'm going to stop the share. Somehow stop the share. Stop the share. Yeah, it's coming back to me. Okay. Again, I'm moving slowly. I'm not going to do specific content today associated with the week's expectations today. I'll pull that together for tomorrow. Actually, surprising myself, I have more energy than I thought I had. True story. My wife said I was talking deliriously more than once. I don't remember that. I think I'm usually talking delirious anyway. And she said it was kind of scary. So we're talking to a doctor, and the doctor said this particular affliction I have is a UTI, but it's gotten a lot worse than a UTI. Get you up here, get your IQ points for a while. And I don't have all my fastball yet as far as some of that's concerned. I can tell. I'm not as interesting to myself, let alone as interesting to you folks. Okay, so I'm looking at chapter 6 in the Collective Mindset book. I'm presuming you've finished the book. If you haven't, that's okay, but because it's quite a while yet to the end of the course. By the way, if you're wondering about what's going on with those surveys that you did, probably next week I'm going to give you more specific about that. But I didn't forget them. I'm saving it for the really to a more appropriate moment as we get closer to the end of the semester. So I'm looking at, as we have been doing, I think pretty effectively, is going to the end of the chapter, pages 65, page 65, and it's got several essential points and several issues and themes that you need to consider that reinforces in this course. Now, this, quite frankly, I'm going to speak ahead of myself in one sense. Collaborative leadership sounds so acceptable, sounds so wonderful that you would just kind of wonder why it isn't happening all the time with everybody in every place where you go. Except but that that it doesn't necessarily happen, and that you also know that sometimes people think they're really collaborating, or that the school is letting them collaborate, when in fact they're really not collaborating. They may be giving input about, whether the soccer fields should be lined this way or that way, kinds of things. But in terms of true, consistent engagement in what's going on, that's a skill set the leader has to nurture and believe in. I went to do a site visit a couple of years ago of an intern in a high school, it was a summer high school. And the intern was a pretty sharp person. And she said to me, he's not giving me anything to do, so I wanted to see this man. And I spoke to him for a few minutes. I said, so-and-so is looking for some projects for you to work on for you. And he said, yeah, okay, sure. He said, well, I said, you're doing anything that would, in the summer, you're really very busy. I understand that. So I said, scheduling. I just mentioned scheduling. And Miss climbed over the desk at me and said, I do the scheduling. I do the scheduling. It was emphatic. So I said, okay, that's fine. I get that. Of course, the principal has the final call on scheduling, which, by the way, is the ultimate leadership skill in so many more senses than people give it credit for, because it represents the culture and the values of how that school is going to run. And that's another conversation. When I'm driving at, he was not interested in anyone saying, well, maybe we need to move the English periods here versus there. We'll collapse this class with that class. Wasn't interested. It's his way that, basically 40 minutes of English, 40 minutes of so-and-so and so-and-so, and that's the way it is. And neither the twain shall meet. So that wasn't collaboration. And he didn't even pretend to say he was interested in collaboration. Now, the climate / culture of your own buildings. Some of you have already spoken as you feel as though you're very collaborative, and that's great. And that would be a part of what the collective mindset presumes in terms of the whole of the W, insofar as it represents all of the good that can be done. All right, so back to these points. None of us is smart as all of us. It's only partially true. I think I've used that phrase with you more than once. People can be really stupid in a group, no offense, and think that they're really smart and be very damaging. So it isn't true that none of us is as smart as all of us all the time. It's not true. It's true if we know how to be smart together. It's truer if we know how to be smart together, if we know how to listen to each other, to think with each other, to problem solve with each other in order to create with each other. So sure, stakeholder groups may be very bright, but not very bright when they think they know how to solve things, and they really don't. The collective mindset model is built on high engagement. Notice I said engagement. I've said that more than once, not high involvement. Now, engagement, I'm going to make a broad, perhaps, I'm not sure if it would offend anyone, but a broad misleading statement. I don't think it's misleading, but could be. Is, typically E&L parents would love to be engaged, would love to be involved on a lower level, be involved, and cannot for any number of reasons. You know more about the reasons than I know, and that puts a lot of light on what this issue is about. So if we want to get engagement from our groups, from teachers is one thing, and from community and parent groups of E&L children, it's a challenge. Now, what works for you? Have you got some things going on over there in your districts and schools that other people would like to know about? I have a few I've heard about, and we'll talk about that at a more appropriate time. I mentioned Priscilla Wohlstetter. Wohlstetter is a researcher who said that there really were 6 pieces to an effective group. And they were described in the book kind of from top to bottom. And I'll only give you the first 3 for a moment just to remind you about them. And that would be power, knowledge, and information. Those are the top 3 by research. But there are others that also flow from those top 3. Now, power goes back to that principal from the high school who said, I only like schedule. A person wasn't willing to share his power to schedule. It's a lot of power with scheduling when you think about it. And he wasn't about to give that up. And so he wasn't going to give that to a group for a collaborative conversation and input, even though he could. So there's one issue right there. The other piece is knowledge. And truthfully, most teachers haven't got a clue how to schedule. It was never my strength. I struggled with that more from the not because I was trying to make my values work with what is, and what is wasn't what my values were. And yeah, sometimes you have to make compromises with that. And then the other piece too is information. You get that. The other word for information, is data. And we talked about that, and we continue to talk about that up the road as we move through. I mentioned Lencioni. Lencioni is an interesting premise too. Lencioni shows you what behaviors a group must have in order for it to be functional. But the way he shows it in his book is dysfunctionally. So instead of saying, you must have trust in your group, hello, you must have trust in your group. Instead of saying that, he says, the absence of trust is a dysfunction. The absence of conflict is a dysfunction. All true. But you just flip it around. Now, what you need to do is put your finger on the pulse of your school or any group that you're part of, and just take a mental count. Everyone trust each other here? That's the big one. If you take that bottom line out of that triangle, then the triangle can't stand. People are interested or okay with disagreeing with each other without throwing their shoes at each other. It's okay to disagree. It's not okay to turn it into a ballroom fight. People are willing to take responsibility for the consequences of their actions. Interesting point. A lot of groups and schools don't do that. So let's say you had an advisory council introducing, considering issues you need to do to improve, instructional offerings. Does everyone trust each other to work back that way, or are people going to try to protect their turfs? Does everyone know how to improve what it is they think they know how to improve? By looking at the data through an objective analytical lens, and so forth. So Lencioni has great import here in terms of understanding what you have to do to make your building, department, or school functional, and as I say, effective. So those points are points you should put up on a wall someplace. They're pretty important ones, I think. And then evolving from those would be the collaboration is a learned practice. It's not natural necessarily. Did the cavemen learn how to kill the mastodon? Now, when they realized they couldn't kill the mastodon without helping each other to do that kind of approach, you learn how to collaborate, co-labor, work with, right? Because it's a collective mindset. You need each other to get these premises done. The power struggles is big. Pay attention to that one. It's hard for people, especially principals, by research, to give up what they think their power is. Instead of, he shouted, this is about as high as my voice can go right now, instead of realizing that our power can change, actually, and grow if she empowers others to grow as well. Think about that one. Dialoguing is hard. Dialogue is not my strength. I'm taught it to myself. It was never my strength. I come from a family where nobody dialogued. Yeah. So I'm smiling, but it wasn't always that pleasant. Dialogue means listening to each other, trying to understand what the issues. To use Stephen Covey, and that's a good book to read, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Trying first to understand before being understood. Because once you get that established, people begin to say, "Oh, let me hear what they have to tell me, and maybe I can make that part of what I'm thinking," and so forth. Be careful of the trust factor. Trust or distrust rears its head in places you can't necessarily even imagine. And when it does, it's a big hairy beast to take care of. All the more reason to expose models that people have in the back of their minds and work them through before you begin to really engage in something of great impact. And when you're doing this collaborative leadership thing, don't give them something massive to do. Give them something relatively simple, and then graduate them up to other points. So that I'm just making this up. So if you wanted them, for example, to examine why homework does not seem to be an effective for ENL children, does not seem to be effective for their growth. So put a little study group together, charge them with the task, and then have them work through these things we're talking about for them to give you some advice as to what they think it really means, what they think the actual truth may be. And then you get the bigger things, and so forth. All right, so this book, like I said, is this chapter rather has when you put it all together with the whole the mindset has so much to say for it. I'm flipping back to page 59 where this chapter begins, and you can see how it's broken out in lighter color, right in the center of the model. We're reading sort of a focus area. It's more than a focus area, it's the pivot wheel. And this I will read to you. All right. I got this phrase from a book. I didn't invent it myself, nor find it myself. I wish I had. We did not put out, and think about what it says. We did not put our minds together. We put our purposes together. And we agreed. And then we decided. Let me go from there. So again, short, powerful chapter. And when you bring it together with the systems thinking and the shared vision premises we've spoken about already, you can begin to see that the building blocks for a school with all of these components integrated among each other can really come up with a very strong and effective way to approach children's needs. Okay. And with that, I am out of gas. But I think I got more done than I thought I was going to get done. So I'll be smiling inside and say, okay, I got this done. And say, okay, let's go back to bed. And I'll try to get the other piece done. But again, don't forget, you should be signing on straight away for the webinar that's starting tomorrow night. And you already have an assignment for me. I didn't put it into Canvas yet, but I will as soon as I get things squared away here. All right. Again, thank you for your patience.